I have a very good friend in the Philippines who is a black belt Aikido master. And we discuss quite a bit the relationship between this form of martial arts and the kind of meditation that we do. And so we found a lot of correlation between these, and we thought, okay, let us see what can be the meaning of Aikido of the soul. Martial arts is generally something physical, but it does require spiritual flexibility and stability, balance, fearlessness, and so many things. So there are many areas where they cross. This session is called Learning How to Fall, because when you begin in Aikido, the first thing you need to know is how to fall, because you will fall. And you don't need to get injured. So a friend of mine was in an airplane crash, and when you have a situation like that, you don't get something that you can walk alone to get out. You have to jump down from the plane, and it's quite far from the airplane door to the ground. And if you don't know how to fall, you will get injured in a situation like that, not from the air crash, but from jumping out of the door when you are 20 or 30 feet above the ground. So learning how to fall is important. You have to understand the energy and speed of you falling down and the ground coming up to meet you. And you have to roll, because without that, there will be injury. There is an expression in English that we hear quite often, which is called the roll with the punches. Maybe it comes in wrestling and boxing. But this idea of rolling is very important when you are in combat. So life is not necessarily a bowl of cherries. There are good days and bad days. There are people with whom you get along well and smoothly, and there are other situations where you find yourself in conflict, in opposition, in difficulties. And all of this is connected with something that we call karmic accounts. Mostly everybody knows the word karma, but not necessarily this concept of karmic accounts. So a karmic account is where there is a problem between people, and it takes the form of conflict. And so there is sorrow, suffering, difficulty, misunderstanding, and emotional, physical, financial experience of hardship. So karmic accounts. And in the meditation practice and study that I do, we take into account the idea of reincarnation. And so karma and reincarnation are very intimately connected with each other. Some people think that you get born in the family of your choice, but that is not the case. You get born in the family where you have a debt. And so you can have positive debts and negative debts. And there are some people in your family with whom you don't have a debt, but they're there because maybe they have a debt with some other person in the family. So you arrive on this earth not from the sky, but from another experience, another life, other people. And so you come with an account, an unfinished account. And because of this, there is conflict. And so the idea of looking at this in the context of Aikido is that if you are in a circumstance of conflict, it's much better if you are skilled and knowledgeable about the phenomenon of conflict. You can probably look at the news on any day and hear about one conflict or another between countries. And at the moment, we have different journalists and politicians talking about, yes, maybe we will go to war, maybe we will have World War III. Good idea? Not good idea. What do you think? War is very terrible. But anyway, we are in time of war, whether it's on a small scale of you and yourself inside your own head. There's war going on there too sometimes. And then you have war between yourself and your very, very favorite best people. That is always very, tragic. And there is some sort of a war in your immediate environment. And so it goes on as an ever increasing circle until it becomes the whole world. So why I'm saying this is because it's very, very good for us to have a positive relationship with conflict. Yes? And it is said for someone in spiritual practice that you are a warrior. So can you imagine yourselves to be warriors today? Are you warriors? Some people, they just don't like conflict. Anybody here? They just don't like conflict. Oh, okay. So I think part of my job is to inspire you to develop a friendly relationship with the concept of conflict. And so there may be different reasons why you don't like conflict. I'll tell you a little story, which I think is quite relevant. I had been in Bosnia, in Sarajevo, and there I met a man who was a very lovely man. And he lived on the front line during the siege of Sarajevo, which was 4 years long. And he was very, very concerned that he will not take up a weapon. He will not hold a gun. And so his most important problem was that the army doesn't find him, because if they find him, they will make him take a gun and go and shoot somebody. And he did not want to shoot anybody. So he avoided being found by the army, and he stayed there on the front line for 4 years without carrying a weapon, and he survived very well. But of course, it was very traumatic to live like that during those times. And one thing that he said to me, which I thought was quite interesting, is that this particular circumstance of conflict was inevitable. There's no way that it could not have taken place. And I think this is important to consider this in our relationship with conflict, that there are times, and we are in times, when living in circumstances of conflict is unavoidable. There is nothing you can do about it. It is there. You like it or you don't like it, doesn't make any difference. It is there. In Aikido, you know that there you are standing there and you have an opponent who is going to come and attack you. And that is the circumstance, that's the nature. So here we are in the same situation. There we are standing, minding our own business, and any time something, someone, some situation will come and attack us. So the one who is a warrior anticipates that there will be attack any time, day or night, sleeping or awake, eating or not eating. And therefore, it is important to be ready so that you can respond. It is likely that your attacker will be stronger than you and more expert than you, right? Especially if you don't like conflict, you will not develop any expertise in conflict. So that means more likely that your attacker is more competent than you. So my reasoning is that if we are in time of conflict and conflict is inevitable, it might be good to develop some skills and be a little bit ready. That would be better. Do you think? So the first thing we need to do before we find out how to fall is take a good look at why we don't like conflict. So you can think for a moment why you don't like conflict, because I will ask you and you will tell me. Right? Oh. Right. And there may be reasons within reasons, layers of reasons. And so it's a deep subject, actually. And there are some who don't like conflict. There are others who like conflict. But I think among all of you, there may not be that many who like conflict. It's more likely to be neutral or not like it. So, are you ready? Tell me, of those of you who don't like conflict, why do you think you go along with this idea of, no, I don't like conflict? You want to tell me?
The outcome of the conflict can be a threat to your existence.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But you put your hand up as a knowledgeable about martial arts. That means...
When I was young, but yes.
You're still young. Yeah. So that means you're ready. But even if you're ready, the outcome of the conflict could be a threat to your existence. So that means you might die. So there comes another question. Are you afraid of death? No? No? Is there anybody who doesn't like conflict and not afraid of death? You. Okay. Several of you. Don't like conflict, not afraid of death. Are you afraid of the death of the other person? Yes? So you don't want to kill. No, this is a very important subject. Have you ever heard about the Bhagavad Gita? The Bhagavad Gita? I raise this point because in the Bhagavad Gita, it's all about God giving the order to the soldier saying, you please kill this person. And he say, no, 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 I don't want to kill. Can you imagine? And he says, and he keeps on, there's an argument through the whole Bhagavad Gita until finally he says, okay, I got it, I'll kill him. And it goes against our morality, right? It goes against our understanding of human existence, human life, the value of life, and all of these things. And here you have the most ancient scripture there is, in which God is discussing with this military commander, saying, go kill your enemy. What is wrong with you? And he says, that's not honorable. I can't do that. And God says, you're a coward. You see? And it's the same God for everybody. So you say, no, my God doesn't talk like that. Yes, he does. So in that argument, very interesting point is there. He says that it is not possible to kill a person because a person is immortal and therefore cannot be killed. Of course, your body can be destroyed. Then he says, okay, your body can be destroyed, but you'll get another one, so not a problem. You cannot destroy the being, the person, the self, right? And so go kill him. And he says, no, 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 I will not do that. And they go on and on and on arguing until finally he understands you have to go through the motions of doing something that cannot be done. It's quite deep. Go through the motions of something that cannot be done to prove that you can do it, to prove that you are not limited and restrained by incorrect concepts, because your reason for not wanting to kill someone is that would be bad, right? But if the person can't be killed, then could it be bad or not bad? It becomes an issue of moral logic to try and figure out. Yes.
What kind of karma this creates?
A very, very interesting question. Let's look at that. Before we go into that, let me just see if there's anyone else who would like to talk about why they do not like conflict. Please.
Trying to figure it out, but it's something to do with entrapment. When there's a conflict that I'm in right now, actually, that I feel like I'm being pulled into a pattern that's not mine, and I'm trying to get out of it, and I don't find a way. And like I'm okay doing conflict, it's somehow, but the possibility to resolve it, and I'm aware that people make their own choices and can do things that I wouldn't do, but then I feel that I'm getting trapped into an energy which is not mine.
Yes. Entrapment. When you go into conflict with another person, it's not just a 5-minute thing. It comes again and again, and you get pulled into the conflict relationship that keeps repeating, and you are asking, what is the issue of karma in this? And these are totally related. Because while it is true that you cannot kill a soul, if you destroy the body of that soul, that is definitely a negative karma. but it depends on the circumstances. And it depends on the motivation. So, for example, in this scenario that I mentioned, the scenario of the Bhagavad Gita, the circumstances are that this military commander, who's also a king, has to respond to a provocation by another king who had raped the wife of this king and who had threatened to take over his whole kingdom and destroy everything in it. So he is obligated by his position as a king to respond and to destroy the enemy. In that case, it's not a bad karma, you see. But in the case of the other one, who wants to disturb this first king, it would be a bad karma because he doesn't need to. He's got his perfectly well fine own kingdom. He doesn't need to rape somebody else's wife. That's not required. And he doesn't need to take over that person's kingdom. It's not his. He doesn't have right. So, but when something is done against you and you're in a position of responsibility, you have to kill, you see. And so when it says in the Bible, for example, thou shalt not kill, it depends who. Does it include mosquitoes? You know, are you vegetarian? And many questions like this. So the injunctions that you get in regular moral education are problematic because they're just an injunction that says do this, don't do that, without qualifying all the necessary details. So when you are in a circumstance of conflict, you have a circumstance of conflict which you don't like. There is some entrapment possible. The other person is free to attack you if he wants or she wants, but you don't want to be involved in it. Am I right? So this is an ethical dilemma because on one side, you owe it to yourself to defend yourself. That is one thing. The second side, you may not know, because it may be connected with some other lifetime, what the details are of how this conflict came into being, you see. And there are many, many, many possible reasons, some of which you may discern, some of which may be impossible to figure out because every time you die and get born again, you don't remember what was in your previous life. I presume you don't remember, right? You don't even know whether you had a previous life. And yet, what the spiritual philosophy says is that there is stuff going on that is present in circumstances and quite likely in your subconscious, which is influencing what's happening in your current life and which may bring about a situation of conflict, whether you like it or not, you see. And when there's a situation of conflict, you have to face it, because what happens if you turn around and run away? It runs after you. And you don't want to be hit in the back. That's not honorable, isn't it? If you want to shoot me here with my eyes open. Look at me while you're shooting me. Is that right? Yes. So a warrior is brave. And so Is it possible you don't like conflict because you're not brave? Are you not brave? Oh. Okay, so of course we like harmony. Harmony is lovely. But if you look in any good music, if it's only, you know, nicey meditation music, it's boring. Right? So you like harmony, but, you know, good art has this contrast, this drama, this little bit, you know, something that's not harmonious in order to be great. And good, nice, harmony, very nice, everybody likes, but it's boring. So this soul needs this something. Yes, please.
I just wanted to share everything that someone said. Just thinking the reason why I don't like conflicts is because often they are in the close relationships. And I think there is a definite fear of I'm going to be abandoned. This conflict is going to lead to the other person walking away, maybe leaving you, and then there's fear of being left alone.
Great. Let me repeat it for the purposes of those who may not have heard you, that conflict with close family members is influenced by fear of abandonment, because this conflict will result in them leaving, and I don't want to be abandoned. So how many of you experience something like this? Have you thought about the importance of being alone? It is said in India, you get born alone, you go through life basically alone, and certainly you will die alone. Even if there's other people around, you die, they stay behind. Usually. Sometimes people die together, but mostly it's in war that happens. So abandonment, fear of abandonment. In that sense, one is not giving oneself permission to do what is necessary because of that fear of abandonment. Then you have to look carefully, very carefully, at the soul of your opponent. To what extent do you love, respect, and honor your opponent? That will be your evaluation of the value of this person as a human being, which is not connected with whether they will leave you or not. Just your assessment of the value of this person, the quality of this person. Is it someone that you love, honor, respect, that you want in your relationship? This is the first thing to think. Because if not, then don't worry about being abandoned. If you love, honor, respect this person, it's nothing to do with whether they'll abandon you or not, but it's that you want to cultivate a relationship with someone of that caliber because you are of that caliber. You see? And conflict, in that case, it is worthwhile to work it out. And to work it out, you have to be skilled in this type of conflict. One example of conflict is in a court of law. You have a prosecutor and a defender, and they are, trying to say this one is guilty and this one is innocent. And so you bring together the arguments and you present the arguments, and there's a judge who says, yeah, yes or no. You see, you need that. You have a conflict of fisticuffs, that's different. So then you need to be very confident in your arguments about presenting your case. You see, that what's this conflict about? I'm in conflict with someone I love, honor, respect. That means two heroes are proving themselves to each other, and this conflict will result in additional love, honor, and respect, I would say. So that kind of thing, that's okay, because the best people fight with each other. If you don't fight, you have a relationship that's out of balance. So that's a very positive type of conflict. And this is a very good example in Aikido. You will want to have as your opponent someone who's your level of martial arts warrior. And you go through the motions of the conflict to see who is more skilled, not to take out somebody's existence, and not to be afraid of hurting them, because in Aikido, you hurt your opponent. Did you know that? Usually it takes the form of breaking their arm, which is fairly painful. But they have to surrender so that you don't break their arm, which means they give to you your point. You win this particular little thing. And when you have a conflict of that nature, that you love, honor, and respect your opponent, well, you have to go through the motions of showing each other in many different ways that we are complementary, we are equivalent, we are skilled, and therefore we can live together because it's egalitarian. You're more or less at the same level. Then you can have harmony, which is not boring. But otherwise, in the world we live in, generally speaking, the moral policy and philosophy is that somebody's the boss and somebody else is the slave. And then it's harmony. That's what people think. But I don't think that's a very good philosophy. Because why would you love, honor, and obey someone who oppresses you? Why? Always there will be some level in which you resent it. And always you will be ready to do something against them because they have abused their power. And because you haven't acquired the skill to take them face on and assert your equivalence of each other. So this is where how to fall comes in. And when you're looking at conflict with someone you love, honor, and respect, there will be some times when you win a point and sometimes when they win a point. And so it's necessary to be able to concede victory to the other one in this or that situation. Do you see what I'm saying? And then you have to lose gracefully, because it's not about if I win, then I'm okay, and if I don't win, I'm not okay. That's not what it's about. Many people think that's what it's about. but it isn't. If you love, honor, and respect someone, then when they show themselves to be more skillful than you in a match, then you say, congratulations, you did it. But it doesn't make you feel less, you see. And if you win over them, you will not see them with the eye of arrogance. Because if you do that, that's an insult. And that's not love, honor, respect, you see. So these are quite tricky things about the quality of relationships that we want to have in life. And so being able to accept defeat is a very good sign of the caliber of person that you are, you see. Because you'll accept defeat, but you won't consider yourself less than. Otherwise, in the world we live in, which is very full of a lot of ego conflict, defeat means loss of face. You see, if you don't have ego and you concede defeat, you don't lose any percentage of self-regard or self-esteem because you don't have ego. See? So a person can fall expertly when they don't have ego, in terms of not physically falling, but spiritually or psychologically, socially, you see. Even financially, someone in a business deal may get the advantage over you because they're more skilled. You regard their skill. You don't feel that you've been cheated because they were more skillful, not that they cheated you. If they cheated you, you wouldn't love, honor, and respect them, you see. You wouldn't want them in your relationship. So there's a difference. When you're falling in a relationship of someone you love, honor, and respect and want in your life, or there's the other relationship, the person that you don't love, don't honor, and don't respect, then you deal with it differently. There will be conflict. This may be something like your situation. I don't know. But
how to do then when there is no love in the relationship?
that's what I'm coming to.
My mind already like 15 minutes.
Yes, you have to keep time for me because there's no clock here. So I don't know, unless that's the clock. No, it's not a clock.
11:45 now.
All right, good. So how did you get into a relationship with someone that you don't like, don't love, don't respect, and don't honor? It's probably circumstantial, yeah? Because you need practice in having a relationship with people you don't like, don't respect, and don't want to be around. But there they are. It can be in the family. It can be in your job. It can be in a community. So there you are. You're in a relationship with them because of circumstances. And it's quite likely that when you came into that circumstance, your opinion of that person was positive, because you always start with giving people the benefit of any doubt, that there's no reason to consider this person is not okay until they give you reason to think that they're not okay. Is that right? Because it's not that everybody who comes in with a black hat is bad and who has a white hat is good. It doesn't happen like that. everybody looks perfectly fine, but you observe their behavior, how they interact with you, and you begin to evaluate that person, and you have certain criteria as to what are the characteristics of someone that you love, honor, regard, respect. And if somebody violates those, then they go down in your estimation and you don't respect them anymore, you see. So then you have to decide if there is any value for you in maintaining this relationship with this person. Now, if they are, say, in a senior position in your job, and you think that you want to keep the job and you want to work around this person, and you will figure out a way, even though you do not like them, you do not respect them, and that you don't trust them. So you have to decide. All of these things are calculations and evaluations. And then you have to see if you can discern the motivations of this person, why they are doing what they're doing, so that you get a very good sense of who this person is. What this means is you are really practicing to be a good judge of character. Because in order for you to honor yourself, you do not wish to be deceived, right? If somebody succeeds in deceiving you, then you think that you're stupid, and that doesn't feel good. So if you have you're a good judge of character, and you can tell if someone is deceiving you or trying to deceive you, or what kind of person this is, and then you have your private personal rules about who's okay and who's not okay, which is individual for you. And then you have to decide that, okay, here's a person who has, this many plus points, and this many minus points. And you make a calculation and you see, overall, do I want to keep this relationship or not? You decide. And you may not be completely sure whether you're making a good decision or not, but sometimes you have to just take a risk, and you have to ask yourself, what is my value to me? Okay. Because if you say to yourself, this person is dishonest, violent, causes trouble to everybody else, including me, and then in plus points, not very many. Maybe they have some money or something. But overall, you say, you know what? I think I'm better off out of this. So then you decide what you're going to do. Are you going to just withdraw, and they will not know why you withdrew? Are you going to make it clear and then withdraw, so they know perfectly well why you withdrew? But then you have to look at the consequences. You see, because this person may be in a position of power, and if you confront them and you're in a weak position, they can do a lot of damage to you subsequently, which you may not necessarily want. So you have to make all these calculations and then decide what you will do. If you decide you want to take that person down, that's an option. You could take that person down and go to war and say, I'm going to take you down because you violate my moral principles in XYZ kinds of ways. And you may succeed or you may fail. It's a risk, it's an option. And if you take them down, how will you feel? Will you take them down successfully? Ask yourself, what's your policy? Do you go to war in a situation where there is a possibility that you might lose, or do you choose to fight where the likelihood of you winning is so strong that it's worthwhile going in? Because that's something to take into consideration. So you have to create your policy, your personal ethical policy about these things. And it's not very easy, but if there is a risk that you might lose, you have to see what sort of injuries will happen immediately and in the long term, and see if it's worth it to you. You see? Because eventually you look at it also in a larger context. Something that I do when I'm making these kinds of calculations. You see, if you want to fight against somebody who is 1,000 times more powerful than you politically, economically, etc., then they can do a lot of damage to you, and it won't make any difference to their behavior or their situation or their success or anything. In that case, it's not worth going against them. You see, in that case, you need to just take yourself out of their environment and be away and let them be, because you're aware about the law of karma. And nobody's exempt from the consequences of their own karma. So you may say to yourself, okay, this person is doing this not only to me, but to thousands of other people. There's going to be an accumulation of negative karma, which will reach a point where that person comes face to face with that, which is much more powerful than them coming face to face with me. So in which case, your better option is to say, enjoy your karma, have a nice day, see you some other time. You see? So that may be, because you have to be wise. And in that case, you take the fall, you say, okay, I'm not strong enough to deal with this. It's not a war that I'm interested in fighting because I'm unlikely to win, and it's not going to do any good. Better I withdraw and allow that person to consider me whatever they want to consider me. I don't need to prove myself. That's another way to fall, which is, I think, quite wise.
Is that the same as saying choose your battles? Why is choose your battles?
I think so, yes. Choose your battle. Yeah. So there are just these circumstances, I think, are very useful, because then you have to sit with yourself and decide what I will do, what I won't do. And also, you be ready to take risks. Because there can be another kind of conflict where there is someone in your life who is in a very, very powerful position, 100 times more powerful than you, and you don't agree with them about something or another. But overall, you love them, respect them, honor them, you think that they're a good person, but in this particular situation, you want to put your foot down and say no. And so how do you do that one? You're taking a risk. You're saying, this is me, this is what I will do, this is what I won't do. If you accept me as I am, good. If not, I'll go. And there you have to risk the abandonment thing, because they might say, go to hell, you know, get out of here. But then they might say, okay, I can work with that. So you have to take a risk. And in that case, to take a risk is a form of asserting and affirming your honor for your own self, that you will not bow to something that you don't agree with on principle, right? You have principles, yeah? So somebody wants you to do something that you don't want to do, there's a risk of you saying no. But if you say no, this is what I will do, this is what I won't do, take me or chuck me out, usually they will take you because they like somebody who can stand up for themselves. So it's worth taking a risk in that case. But you have to overcome your internal unwillingness to come into conflict, because there is a possibility that you might lose your existence in that relationship. You might be abandoned. You might be, classified as a bad person in everybody's eyes, and all of these things are possible. But because you're operating from the angle of, I will not go against my own self, my own honor, you take the risk. Whatever the outcome is, you're ready for it. This is usually a good thing to do, because you do earn their respect by doing that. You say, don't respect somebody who just does what they say, because then you're showing yourself to be a sheep when really you're a wolf. Nothing wrong with wolves, right? You know the story of these wolves who were needing a habitat, and there was a really barren, messed up piece of land. So these people, environmentalists, said, okay, we put the wolves over there and that'll be okay. And they didn't expect anything good to happen, but the complete ecosystem went better because of the wolves, because they balanced the ecosystem out, which had been destroyed. Wolves. Otherwise, in our narrative, wolves are the bad guys, because the morality that we are given in the culture that we live in, what is known as Western culture, Western civilization, it's very, very skewed, very imbalanced, very biased, very unusable, actually, from a spiritual point of view, because it's entirely materialistic, without taking into consideration all of these subtle matters that need to be taken into consideration. And therefore, it fails. So here we are in it, and damaged by it ethically. Damaged ethically because it has conditioned us to put aside our value because of fear of this or that or the other, or because of fear of losing face, or because of something connected with ego, which is about inferiority, superiority. So sometimes we need to take a fall from public opinion, right? Public opinion, very powerful. We decide if you're okay or not. Thank you very much. Who are you? What? No. What do you have to evaluate yourself? You have an amazing instrument called conscience. You have conscience, right? Yeah. Will you go against your conscience to satisfy public opinion? No, huh? But it's a very high price you pay. Are you rich? Can you pay it? Yes. Yes? Yes. No? Yes. Sometimes you have to have extra wealth in the form of personal power to take the punishment that you get from that which is in a position of power when it's a matter of you going against your conscience or not. Yes? So there you find out what quality of human being you are. If you can maintain your attention on the voice of conscience and still navigate your way through this circumstance, which is designed to make you go against your conscience, which is called corruption. How you corrupt people is make them do something against their conscience. Then you have power over them. That is corruption. Do you like to be corrupted? So then you need the skills. Sometimes it means you have to kind of hide your reality so that you can maintain your conscience and still get through like a good fish. So think about that. Does it make sense to you? Have you started to like conflict? I mean, at least have a different angle on it. That it doesn't mean I'll be abandoned because I'm okay. It doesn't mean I'll be abandoned by who I want to have in my life because I'm getting skilled at, being an equal instead of inferior, superior. You see? It's very important to consider oneself as not less than anybody else in terms of your value as a human being. A good fighter values him or herself. This self-honor is very, very important. And I think it's a good part of the Aikido of the soul. My existence has value, whether somebody else agrees with that or not. That's their problem. I have value as a human being. Yes? You may have received messages your whole life about how you don't have value, but that's their opinion. And you say to yourself, okay, you're welcome to your opinion. Have a nice day. I am valuable. Yes? This means you're ready to, stick your neck out. Yes, this is me. You like me, you don't like me, it's not my problem, your problem. I'm good. I see. But the civilization, the culture we live in, does everything possible to prevent you from having self-honor, because then they can control you, corrupt you, etc. So it's quite good to have this inner voice where you're talking to yourself and you recognize your value. Because then you stand up in a conflict and say, okay, you have a problem with me, let's go. I see. But if you don't, you can't. And that's doesn't feel right in your heart. even though you may have experienced so many traumas and nasty words from people who you have to honor, and parents and teachers and all this slew of people who are, in a sense, instruments to get you to understand that you don't depend on their opinion. Who are they? They're actors in a drama, but behind that, they are your equals. See? How are they your equals? Every soul is eternal and immortal. Every soul. So, in that sense, they're your equals. The age of the body is the age of the body, not the age of the soul. Right? So, to consider yourself as an internal, immortal being of light, performing in a big drama, which is sometimes a comedy, sometimes a tragedy, sometimes a history, sometimes a mystery, whatever it is, but you're you, and they're them, and your judge is partly your conscience, and partly whatever is higher than the general humanity. So it becomes very important not to put yourself in a position where you give away your power to someone else to tell you whether you're okay or not okay. This is very important. Because it helps very much when you do that to be not concerned about conflict. Conflict's okay, you want to fight me? Okay, no problem. I'll fight you. Then it becomes a dance, a game, not the scary thing that interferes with your ethics. Because you re-look at your ethical policy on the basis of slightly different criteria. And then I think you are more easily able to enjoy the win, the lose, because you're systematically getting past the ego problems, which are there, definitely. So I think I stopped there. How are we doing in time? Am I right time?
11:05. So
11:05.
Yes.
All right. So do we have questions?
Question. I'm still coming back to that, that if there is this kind of not good relationship because of, whatever reasons, and it has been like long-term relationship, and you have to be with that person, and then when there is like a need of, going through some conflict, but then it's like very challenging to, when you are in the good states, then it's possible, but very often then you are not in the good state, and then anger or this kind of frustration and this type of emotions are coming, and then it's not going to lead anywhere. It's just creating more and more conflict. So what to do in that situation?
Okay, I just repeated what to do in a long-term situation where you are in conflict, but you have to be there. And sometimes you're okay, sometimes you get angry, you get emotional. How to sort that out? Well, it is said, never make a decision when you're emotionally aroused. And if you get in conflict when you're angry, it will go badly. There have been times when I've been asked to to teach the soldiers how to kill in different countries. And I tell them always, it's nothing to do with being in a state of emotional arousal. You are part of a battalion. You have to work with your other people. You know the enemy. You have to know very clearly you want to kill, you want to stop them running, or you want to injure them. And if you want to kill, make sure they die instantly. Do not make them suffer. If you want to make them stop running away, understand where your bullet has to go so that there's minimum damage, but what you want is done. They can't run away. And if you want to scare them, shoot them very near, but don't hit them. You have to be very accurate and non-emotional and know what you're doing, and do not have a cowardice, run away, panic, any of those things that will cause everything to go badly. And so in this situation, the problem is when you're allowed yourself to get into an emotional state and still get into the interaction. So you have to teach yourself to keep yourself calm. And this is where your meditation comes in. You've got to keep your meditation level up so that you can be ready at any time. And you have to work out the relationship. As I had been mentioning about, if you have an issue with someone who is that caliber that you love them, you honor them, you respect them, but you have to get into standing up for yourself. And for that, you need to have the self-honor, you see. And when you come under the influence of any existing trauma, or you're under the influence of the religion, or anything that has managed to corrupt you or anything, you need to work through that and then come on to the conflict intact, you see. Otherwise, you're at a big disadvantage. So this is all about working out relationships. And the more you have honor for yourself, the more you will attract people who are your level, you see. But when you don't honor yourself, you don't realize who you are, you will attract the wrong kind of people. And that is also an uncomfortable thing. Yeah.
How do you know that I am influenced by something? Sometimes I think that you don't not knowledge them, but knowing the influence of what kind of thing.
How do you know if you're influenced by something? You need to be with yourself frequently enough to know when there is something that's making you disempowered, And it can be the consequence of some kind of trauma. Mostly it's to do with emotional trauma or physical trauma. You see, say for example, someone has been in a war and they know the sound of the airplanes before they drop the bombs, or they know the sound of buildings falling, or something associated with a trauma of war. Anytime later on they hear something or feel something or even smell something that is associated with that trauma, it'll trigger your trauma response, which is run away or freeze or pretend or get into a panic. you see, and they're influenced. And so how to neutralize the influence is to identify it. I am feeling this because of that smell, because that smell reminds me of this thing which freaked me out, but it's not freaking me out now because it's actually a different smell. And so I can calm myself, understand where it came from, understand that it's not that thing actually now, so that I'm actually okay. Come back into your power. That wave of emotion, will let it pass through you and go out, and then you're back to your state of your own power. And for that, you need to examine yourself long and hard to be able to put your finger on where you got traumatized. And that's a big piece of work, but it can be done. Sometimes people need a therapist to do that. That's very helpful. Sometimes you can manage it by yourself if you're sufficiently able to look deep into yourself and connect up all the associations and see where this is from. There are very few people in this world who do not have the scars of trauma. Very few. So it's kind of good to know. Yeah.
One question here.
Oh, okay.
So someone is asking, how does one honor oneself? It was something very bad in their generation, and it is very strong, and one thing triggers another.
Well, I think the same thing as I was just saying. You need to go to the source. You know, Gita was telling you when she was introducing me that I'm looking in the Kalevala now. You all know the Kalevala, right? I just know it this last 2-3 days. But anyway, one thing that it says in there, and I'm reading a translation done by a Finn who knows properly what it is, and it's full of magic. And magic, to me, refers to how you function in your, like, you're in contact with your subconscious all the time. So when the heroes of the Kalevala are casting spells and doing their magic, they're always finding the origin of everything, right? Have you seen that? They look for the origin. What's the origin of iron? So somebody got cut by an axe. So how he manages it, how he heals himself, he has to go to the origin of where did iron come from. And there are many symbols connected with that. And once he has put his finger on the origin, then he can control the iron and the effect of the iron. And to me, that's very important information, because then you can go back to the origin, your essential trauma, which may go back a long, long way historically. But if you're in contact with your subconscious, you have it there in you. It comes with you, incarnation after incarnation. And you can put your finger on it and say, I see where this came from. And then immediately there's a distance between yourself and that trauma, which means you have control over it. And then you can decide whether it influences you or you influence it, because you see the origin. This is good magic. And it's quite well described in the Kalevala. It's all there. Pretty good. Yeah. And this is very ancient. That means people have been dealing with this stuff for a long, long time. And so this is for Finland, but there are such myths and legends and so on in other cultures. You know, I'm a little bit familiar with the ones from India, and it's all in there in the Mahabharata and the Ramayana and so on. It's all in there, but you have to dig into the symbols and understand what's going on there. And then you say you've got the keys. Once you have the keys, you can unlock the puzzles. And then it's not a puzzle. So that's pretty good. But because we're in this very materialistic culture who doesn't understand anything about those things, who doesn't think there is a soul or a subconscious or anything, you are deprived of the magic, and you have every right to magic. So you have to assert your right. Yes, I have a right to the magic. Ta-da! Get out of my way. Let me have my magic. I'll take it anyway. You see?